My name is Daniel Scott with UDAYA.com, and this is Average Joga, a series of easy-to-digest yoga tutorials for people who don't do yoga yet. Take what you like, leave what you don't, go at your own pace, and learn to build your practice from the ground up. Downward dogs, cats, and cows. All of these poses are wonderful poses to work on to create strength and length and grounding and awareness of the muscles around the torso, the muscles around the spine, and to use the strength from the inside to help extend outward and into your mat and set a great foundation for rest and energy in your yoga practice. So we're going to start with demystifying or breaking down, deconstructing what cat and cow are in general. So you're going to come to your hands and your knees. So shoulders over elbows over wrists, hips over knees. Make sure it's not wide. You want to really make sure that the knees are stacked directly under the hips. So if it's really close to the wrists, you're going to see that the spine rounds more than it needs to. And if it's really far away, you're going to start to see how the tailbone arches. And although cat and cow does work with the tailbone arching and flexing, don't think about moving the tailbone. You're going to actually try to engage the muscles that move the bones. I'm going to repeat that. You want to engage the muscles that move the bones. So with the shoulders over the hands and the hips over the knees, you can have the toes tucked, you can have the feet flat, but just commit. Don't just do half and half. You have to, the foot position's not so much important as it is necessary. And I say that because if you just sort of don't think about your feet, you're not using all of the connection that you have to the ground to maximize your movement. Hands under shoulders, knees under hips, toes tucked or feet flat. For this exercise, I'm going to tuck them. Now my spine is neutral, so it's neither round or it's neither arched. The idea here is to take a big old breath in, and on the exhale, navel's going to draw in so much, like you're trying to suck the energy of the ground up into the belly button trying to move away from the mat so much that the tailbone starts to point down and the chin begins to round into the chest. Now as that happens, the shoulders extend through the wrists, that the upper back begins to round, and the tailbone begins to lower, and the spine arches like a cat. Not surprisingly, this is called cat pose. Rounding the spine, navel's drawing in so much, it's moving the energy from the core through the shoulders into the hands, and from the core through the hips into the knees, and it's rounding the spine. The muscles are making this movement happen. On the exhale, relax and come back to neutral. You can see as that happens, my gaze shifts back to right 2 or 3 inches in front of the fingertips. Take a breath in here, and on your next exhale, try to engage the muscles in the back that lift the tailbone and lift the chest and start to slide the gaze forward and up. And even as you do this, the hands press into the ground, the knees press into the ground, and the tailbone lifts, the chin lifts. And this one doesn't look as much like a cat does in the first one, but they call this one cow. So I don't understand really why. I guess it's like moo. You can make that sound. It's not supposed to really help, but maybe it does in your practice. So from this cow position, the tailbone's lifted, the chin is lifted, and the core, it doesn't relax, it's engaged, but the muscles in the back are doing more work to lift the chest, open the chest, and lift the chin. Big inhale here, and then exhale, come back to neutral. So work between your cat and your cow, not by pressing into the hands or pressing into the knees, but by engaging the core so much that the rounding of the spine arches and flexes through the body and makes the movement happen. Now, as this movement happens, you can press into the hands, you can grip with the fingers, you can press into the thighs, press into the knees, press into the toes, and see what it's like to engage the outer muscles to move the inner muscles, and then also to engage the inner muscles, the core muscles, to move the bones throughout the body. And you'll notice that my elbows are staying straight, and it's really just the spine moving independently from the shoulders and the hips as I round and I arch, catting and cowing to my heart's desire. And try to move with the breath and not against it. So if you sort of inhale halfway and hold, you can't really use the muscles as much. So if you use that exhale through the pursed lips like this, you're going to find the core engages. So you can prepare, inhale here, and then exhale, rounding through the spine. You can use that lift through the breath to make this movement much more smooth. Now, cat and cow build awareness of the muscles around the spine and also build strength through the movement of the muscles around the spine. So that helps make some fluidity in this spinal movement. It's also going to help us take it to downward facing dog. Downward facing dog is a very funny pose because in the beginning, it's one of the hardest things you have to do, especially if tight hips and tight shoulders and your arms don't feel that strong. Your teacher is going to say, go to downward facing dog if you want to rest. And everyone's going to be like, what are you talking about? It's not a rest at all. It's one of the hardest things ever. Over time, downward facing dog becomes a place of rest and relaxation. But in the beginning, good alignment is going to take a lot of the pressure out until you've built the strength that you need. So we're going to start in a child's pose for this one. So the hips are going to be back by the heels, and the forehead's going to be down. Now you want to use the same muscles that you would use in that cat position. Navel's drawing in to round through the spine, tucking the toes, and then keeping that rounding down, pressing into the hands and lifting the knees, and keeping the knees bent. And in fact, try to take the shoulders not directly above the wrist, but slightly back, so there's a bit of an angle happening. You can have the eyes look by the thumbs. Now, in the beginning, this downward facing dog doesn't look like the upside down V that everyone has that, it looks beautiful. But if you have very tight shoulders and you can't quite get the arms in line with the ears, this is a great place to start. This little soft, short dog. And especially if you have tight hamstrings, you can't fully extend, you can't drop the heels, don't. Bend the knees, keep the heels lifted, and just focus on having a nice long neck. Don't lift the chin. Don't try to tuck the chin. Keep the neck in line with the spine, and then simply try to lift the hips as high as you can, and then press into the hands to let the ears go in line with the biceps as best as you can. Again, if you can't get them perfectly, a slight lift is okay. Then from here, you can work on extending one leg, or extending another leg, or perhaps extending both legs. But if it starts shaking and the hips start to shake, you can bend the knees a tiny bit. In fact, bend the knees a lot. Take the thighs towards the ribs. You might find more space in the shoulders. So play with moving the head past the arms to lengthen the legs, or taking the head in line with the arms and bending the knees and playing with all the different variations you can do to have the arms in line with the ears, to have the hamstrings open up in the back, and to keep the neck long. The moment you lift the chin, the tailbone is going to arch. And the moment you tuck the chin, the tailbone is going to round. And depending on your body type, this might help or hinder your practice. So to play it safe, try to keep the eyes and the nipples looking in the same direction no matter which way your torso is turned. So from this downward facing dog, as you come in from that child's pose, rounding through to put weight in the hands, tucking the toes, lifting the hips, and just simply trying to keep the neck long. You can pull the nose into the skull, into the back of the head to lengthen, and then as you're ready, you begin to extend the legs. Now, open hamstrings, you might be able to have the heels dropped. You might even be able to take the feet slightly closer and really extend, and that downward facing dog becomes super nice over time. But even so, try it with the feet narrower than the hips and the hands slightly wider than the shoulders. This might give you more space to play with different varieties of what's going on in the arms and legs. Now, most importantly, let's talk about our hands. So take a quick look at your hands. Base of the palm, knuckles, fingertips. When you're placing your hands onto the mat, you want to find all three lines very strong. A lot of times these hands begin to lift up. The big knuckle, the pointer knuckle begins to lift up. So do fingertips, knuckles, and then palms, and try to keep all three lines connected strongly to the ground. The pointer finger and the ring finger, those knuckles, try to line them up with the outer edges of your wrists, the big ball at the end of each bone right there. Fingertips, knuckles, base of palm, pointer finger and ring finger line up with the outside edges of the wrists, And then starting from the beginning, from that child's pose, lifting the hips, rounding through that spine until you're able to get the arms and ears in line with each other, and eventually dropping the heels and extending the legs if you dare. Navel's drawing in, breath is smooth and easy, and try to find that nice strong connection from the ground up through the arms to the shoulders to the hips, back down through the heels, as best you can in your own body, at your own pace, in your own time. Don't worry about how it looks, just bring awareness to how it feels. So, how'd all that land for you? Hopefully it sparked a fire, and if you're looking to fan the flame, head over to UDAYA.com and enter the promo code AVERAGE Joga. You're going to have access to a lot more classes from myself and a host of amazing teachers from around the world of all shapes, styles, and colors. By all means, let this serve as a great foundation to build a home practice on that you can have for the rest of your life. Enjoy, enjoy.